Hi, if you're new to the world of home decorating and you're thinking about nipping down your local DIY shop to buy some paint, when you get there it can be quite a daunting prospect because there's thousands of tins of paint all over the place and it's making that choice, which one do I need to use, which is best for which type of wall. So this video is all about choosing the correct sort of paint that you'd like to use on your walls and ceilings. The good news is that all the paints I'm going to be showing you are water-based paints, which means that they're good for the environment. They're quick drying and they're very low odour as well. And all the major paint manufacturers make their own versions of these paints as well. So if we start off with the three main paint finishes which are mainly used in the UK, and we'll start off with this particular one, vinyl matte emulsion, and this is probably the most used paint in the UK at the moment. Vinyl is the resin which is in the paint which gives it its sort of durability, and matte means it dries with no shine on the surface, which means it's brilliant for if you've got walls at home with lots of bumps and lumps all over them, because it tends to hide any defects on the surface. Also, if you touched over any pen marks or something on the wall, normally it doesn't show up, so that's brilliant as well. They're quite quick drying, 2 to 4 hours between coats. You can give them a quick wipe with a damp cloth, these matte finishes, and they normally survive reasonably well. They've got what's called good opacity. They cover over other colours very well as well. You need to apply 1 or 2 coats where necessary, and you can also thin the matte emulsion down with about 20% water, so you can use it as a mist coat on new plaster. So also this one's quite forgiving when you're applying it, because it's what's called a self-levelling finish. So most amateurs, this is a good paint to go for, because most people end up with a really good result at the end. So vinyl matte emulsion, a good all-round paint to use on your walls and ceilings at home. If you've got situations like in bathrooms and kitchens which get quite damp and condensation, then vinyl silk would be a good choice. It dries with a sort of a mid-sheen finish, so unfortunately it does tend to show up any bumps and lumps on the surface, which is a bit of a shame. And also, if you try to touch over with the paint, it does show up, so that's a bit of a downside to this one as well. However, it's tough and washable, suitable for areas where there's condensation. You need to apply in 2 coats of paint. Also, this one is a bit more tricky to apply to get a good result when you're applying it, so you really need a bit more practice before you use the vinyl silk. And when you do need to, if you're rolling the walls, you need to cut in each wall before you roll it as you go. You need to apply it fairly quickly so that you don't have visible overlaps where you've joined the paint as you've been going along in stripes or in little boxes, because that's called flashing. So you do need to apply this pretty quickly, this vinyl silk paint, to make sure that you get a good finish when you've applied it. So that's the vinyl silk for areas where you get condensation or where you've got small children flying around the house and you better wash any marks off the walls. This is more of a favourite of mine, the next one, vinyl soft sheen. It's got the same attributes as the vinyl silk, so it dries very quickly, but it's got less of a shine than the vinyl silk, which I prefer myself. It does though still show up defects on uneven surfaces, but it's washable, which is brilliant. And also it's a bit more tricky to apply than the matte one, so you need a bit of a practice before you try to apply these sort of paints really. And finally, on the subject of the silk and the soft sheen, is you cannot apply vinyl matte paint directly on top of them. So if you've got shiny walls at home at the moment, you can't put a matte emulsion straight on top of it. If you do, what happens is the paint film will crack, okay, all across the surface, which is pretty grim actually. So if you are thinking about applying a matte finish over a shiny paint, then I suggest you look at my video on how to apply matte emulsion over vinyl silk, and I'll explain on how to do that on that video. Right, so that's the 3 main paints used in domestic situations. Moving on now to what's called contract matte emulsion. Now this is used widely on new housing developments because it's got what's called a permeable, breathable finish. So that lets the plaster dry out through the paint film as it's drying naturally. Okay, it dries to a matte finish, so there's no shine to it. But you can see it's got no vinyl in it because it's just called contract matte emulsion. So it hasn't really got a lot of strength to it. So if you ever lived in a brand new house, you might have found that when you try to wipe any marks off the wall, the paint comes off the cloth as well, because hasn't got the resin in it to give it any strength and durability. But it is brilliant. So if you've had a new extension put on your house or some ceilings plastered, this is the paint you need to use, because it lets that plaster still dry out naturally in the future. So contract matte, really only used for new housing developments or new plaster or plasterboard surfaces. The next one along here is what's called a scrubbable matte emulsion. So if, like me, you prefer matte finish on your walls, but you've got lots of children flying around, leaving marks on the walls, pen marks, etc., this is the way to go, because this is a scrubbable matte emulsion. Very durable. It doesn't have a vinyl resin in it. It's got what's called an acrylic resin in it, which makes it far tougher, which also means it's slightly more expensive, but it's a bit of a trade-off because it is a very good paint. Ideal for what they call high traffic areas, where you've got lots of people going backwards and forwards. Because it's a matte finish, it still doesn't show up any defects, and it can be touched in if required. And one of the manufacturers, it says it'll survive 10,000 scrubs. So that's pretty reassuring, isn't it? So if you want a matte finish, but you've got danger, we've got children flying around, marking up the walls, etc., then that's probably a good choice there. Before that diamond matte was available, we used to use this a lot, called Acrylic Eggshell paint. It gets its name because when it's dry, it's got a slight sheen on the outside, like you get on the outside of an egg. So that's where it gets its name, eggshell. So it's got a slightly more shine than a matte paint. It's resistant to condensation, can be cleaned and scrubbed, it's tough and durable, and they used to use this widely in hospitals, hotels and other public buildings because it's a tough and durable paint finish. And also you can use it on woodwork at home as well, so you can paint tables and chairs with it. It's a real tough paint. So acrylic eggshell, another good choice for where you want a tough and durable paint. Now moving on to what's called kitchen paint. Now how this differs from normal matte emulsions, it's got an antibacterial formulation which stops mould growth and makes it more hygienic. It's resistant to steam. Cooking stains can be wiped away as well, because if you're like me, you've had a new kitchen put in recently, you don't tend to put many tiles up, you just put like an upstand, and there's more danger of you getting baked beans splattered over the wall and stuff. And if you do, you can wipe them away very easily because it's got an anti-stain resistant finish. This is normally available in a matte finish, so if you want a good paint for using in the kitchen, this is far more durable and a better paint to choose than the normal matte emulsion. Then moving along, they also do a special paint for your bathrooms as well. So it's suitable for areas which you've got high levels of condensation, like bathrooms and shower rooms. It comes in a soft sheen finish, so you can easily wipe it down. And most of them give at least a 5-year anti-mould guarantee, which is quite reassuring as well. They're moisture and steam resistant, obviously durable and washable, and you must apply at least 2 or 3 coats to get the maximum performance out of these bathroom paints. And finally, this particular paint I've used a lot in situations where you've got that black speckledy mould you get on your walls. You try painting it over, within a few months it comes back again. This basically stops that happening. I've used it on many jobs and it lasts for years and years and does hold back that mould. So various manufacturers make this sort of anti-mould paint, but they all give at least a 5-year guarantee to stop the paint being affected by mould. It also is good because it resists cracking and peeling and blistering, which is what you can normally get in bathrooms, as you may well know from your own experience. It's available in both a matte and a satin finish, and it's obviously recommended for high humidity areas. Very washable. Normally it's only available in white, but if you're lucky, a lot of the DIY shops will tint it for you to the colour of your choice. So as you can see, that's just a flavour of the type of paints which are available for use on your walls and ceilings at home. But hopefully now you've got more of an idea of what choices you've got out there. So hopefully you found this video useful, and if you have, why not subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos.